Okay guys, so I'm a big believer that we are very privileged to be born in this time in history. You know, we have everything available to us right at our fingertips. All the knowledge that humanity has gathered over so many years is available for us to better ourselves. And it's all thanks to the centralization of information. Thanks to the internet, we can really learn anything we want. And sometimes we take that for granted in our daily lives when we just use it for social media and other things like that. So before I go into the crux of my talk, I just want to touch on a little bit of history to make a specific point. The history of knowledge kind of started with the ancient Greeks who laid the foundations. You know, they founded stuff such as philosophy and mathematics, and that paved the way forward for other great innovations, which the Roman Empire took a bit further. You know, they built aqueducts, machinery, and other great things, the Colosseum, which all still stands today. And then the Dark Ages hit in the Western world, and much of the information was lost, and we were taken back many steps. As you can tell by that graph over there, if it wasn't for the Dark Ages, we would probably be living in space by now. And so, you know, the point I'm trying to make here is that humanity has been through much struggle, wars, atrocities, blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of hard work to get us to the point where we are. Great minds have seemingly come up with great innovations out of nowhere and done all of the hard work for us to get us to the point where we are at today, where everything is available at our fingertips. So we kind of owe it to the people of the past to make the most of this, not only as a society, but as individuals. We need to be using the resources available to us to teach ourselves how to improve ourselves and to better everything around us. So with great progress comes new problems, and I don't want to get too deep into the future of the job market because I'm sure I've heard these talks many times before, the doomsday prophecies that the robots are coming for our jobs. But you know, the other big thing that applies to us is just the fact that many of the jobs we want in the future are going to be redefined and going to require a different sort of a skill set. And creativity and human skills will most likely be the most valuable assets of the future. Now, traditional schooling has kind of boxed us in. We've been taught to focus on retaining, processing, and repeating rule-based information. And robots already outperform us in these tasks, and in the future, they will completely wipe the floor with us in these tasks. So I was very refreshed when I came here to Red and Yellow to find out that the school, you know, focuses on other things and tries to teach us different skills. And that's ultimately why we're here today doing Mac Live presentations instead of a final exam. Because, you know, it's teaching us the skills that we really need as opposed to an exam where you'll forget the stuff a few weeks later. Now, the point here is you need to be flexible. I believe we need to be learning new jobs. You need to kind of look at your career path moving forward and think what kind of you know, skills could I apply to my job, what sparks my curiosity, and get learning. Now, for me personally, creativity is probably the best field to go into. And the reason for that is simply because of the value of creativity. Now, if I take places like France and Italy, for example, millions of people come there a year. There are many places where there are more tourists than people, and they just sit at awe, and they marvel at all these great works of art, which have gained so much value over time. You know, you can't even put a price tag on these things. Most of them aren't even for sale. Now, in a more modern marketing sense, if you take a very basic product, put a brand behind it, create a story as well as other things, you know, you can really make something worth so much more. Creativity essentially creates wealth out of nothing. Now, creativity usually requires a bit of a skill set. If you want to make the most out of your creative potential, you're going to need to develop some sort of skills in order to do that. Unless, of course, you're into modern art where you just, you know, can chuck some glasses on the floor in a bin and people will still stare at it in awe and pay money. But we all got into marketing, and I know we want to do cooler stuff than that. So that's going to require you to teach yourself some skills. And this is where I believe the internet, and in particular YouTube, is your greatest asset. We are so lucky to have these resources available to us where you can actually teach yourself anything. You can learn anything. I'm not telling guys to go and learn finance on YouTube. You should probably do that through a formal schooling thing. But I know everyone here is pretty much done with schooling. You don't want to go back and learn new things. So the impetus is now on you to teach yourself things. So, you know, make the most of YouTube and Google. Pick something that applies to what you want to do and start learning. Just to give you an example of what can be done by one person, this video game playing here was made by a single guy in South Korea. Now, games like this usually tens of millions of dollars of budget to make, big teams, and one guy did it all by himself, just by teaching himself stuff online. Now, my experience with all of this comes when I finished school, and then I decided to study, and I decided to, take up a business degree, and I thought, I want to teach myself some other skills. I want to do something a little bit cooler on the side. So I decided to start teaching myself music production, and there's many skills required, and it was a long road to get to where I am today. I had to learn all of these types of fancy plugins and whatnot, and how they work. People usually go and study these things, but instead I just taught myself on the side, and I'm very grateful that I did that. So here's a quick little video showing some of the stuff I do. So I create sounds from scratch. I had to teach myself synthesis, music composition. I didn't do any music at school, so I had to teach myself how to compose music from scratch, how to turn it into a full song. And the real hard part comes with putting everything together, into a final product that people can, enjoy, and to actually make it a final thing. And I'm very happy with what I've done, and I'm hoping to do something with it one day. But for now, I need a job, like we all do. And it's quite hard to monetize this stuff. So I'm on the job hunt. And I'm sure you guys have noticed that when you look for jobs, you'll see you need Photoshop skills, design skills, film and photography, all sorts of other pieces of software. And it closes a lot of avenues for you if you haven't learned these things. And I'm a bit behind myself, and I want to learn some Photoshop when I get out of here. That's probably a good one to learn, along with video editing to create content online. Coding is probably also another good option, but I know it's a bit daunting. Now, I'm not telling everyone to become a musician. There's far too many musicians as is. And so, if creativity is not for you, the least you can do is try and teach yourself some human skills. These are the types of skills that can't be replaced by robots. This is unique to you. Robots don't have that consciousness that we have. And these are the types of skills that will help you move up an organization, fit in with the working world, deal better with people. And I know it can be a little bit off-putting to think, am I going to go learn from people online how to have better speaking skills and listening? But it's still very worth your time, and it doesn't take much time just to learn a bit of these things. It takes a long time to apply it to your life, but it can help you a lot. So finally, I just want to touch off with some difficulties. Now, it's not as easy said and done as I'm claiming it to be. There's a lot of problems. As Sally was talking about in her talk earlier, data costs are very high. Not everyone has the accessibility to these things. But hopefully in time, when the prices drop, more people will gain access to all of these things. I know in music, for example, there are guys in the townships who, just because they managed to get hold of a really crappy computer and some internet, they taught themselves music like I did. They've risen to the top, made millions of rands, and are part of an ever-growing industry, which is great for the country and the people who enjoy the stuff. So hopefully that will spill over into other industries, and people will, develop their skills and help grow our economy. So other problems are no strict deadlines. If you're going to teach yourself something, nobody's forcing you when to hand things in. You kind of have to impose it on yourself. You've got to give yourself clear goals, and it can be quite tricky, or else you might end up going nowhere pretty fast. And then there's also very little structure. So if you were in a university setting, there would typically be a syllabus for you where it's all laid out for you, but now you kind of have to figure out what you need to learn, where you need to go, and that can be quite difficult. And then finally, all of this is quite a long-term commitment. There's no instant gratification here. So, you're going to be a bit disappointed at first. If you learn something like Photoshop, your work at the beginning will be pretty crap. You won't be able to monetize any of it or use any of it. But just keep putting in the work, because a little progress each day adds up to big results. And I promise you now, if you start developing some sort of a skill on the side now, you will really, really be grateful for it later when the job place changes and you aren't being made redundant. In addition to that, you can also make much more fulfilling work that you can be proud of. So guys, get practicing now. You don't have families or anything. It's going to be tricky when you get older. You're not going to have the time to teach yourself these kinds of things. So, get practicing. I wish you all the best for your careers, and good luck.